there, this is Flair, and today we're gonna take a slight look at openings for the Delian League. I've decided to go over these move by move in a tier list format, because why not? We will rank all the previously done openings into 4 different categories. The best option, which is the category where I will place moves that I simply just believe should be played every time. Strong is, it's a really, really solid move. Good alternative is opening move that's really good, but needs to be played in a very specific combination of moves. And niche is maybe not the best, but could have use. So we'll go over center by center and take a look at all the options. So starting with Athena or Athens, we have 2 options. Either Aztekos to Athena to Corinthus, which is the main option, I'd say, but we also have Athena to Saronic Golf. So Athena and Corinthus is very interesting since they are adjacent home centers at the start of the game. This causes a lot of initial tension, and most of the time I would say that Corinthus to Athens is the best option for the Peloponnesian League, which means that any move not to Corinthus is most likely gonna end up with you having an army in Athens, which is not perfect. There is openings where this might not be the case, but I'd say in general that Athena to Corinthus is the strongest option in general, because it's just the safest. The other option is Athena to Saronic Golf, and it's mostly a counter to Sparta moving to Saronic Golf, because if they open to Saronic Golf and you don't, you all of a sudden have 2 units on Athena and you can lose out quite badly. You bouncing Saronic Golf successfully basically means that 2 of their units don't get a center, while you only need 1 to make sure that happened, which is honestly really amazing. But in the worst case, you might have been Saronic Golf, they go Corinthus to Athena, and Sparta to save Crete, and you end up in a guessing game to maybe gain something, maybe go -1. Still, it's a very powerful, it's still a nice offensive option, and if your opponent maybe has a pattern of moving Sparta to Saronic Golf, it could be worth it to try to bounce them in there, which is why I think it's a good alternative. Okay, moving over to the Western Front. Aztekos is, in my opinion, one of the absolutely most important centers for Delian, home center-wise. And most times I think there is a best option, being Aztekos to Molos Golf. Molos Golf is one of the most powerful tiles on the entire map, being adjacent to what I believe is 5 supply centers, 3 of which is neutral, and the other 2 being home center from each player. I think there's a lot of arguments for going to Molos Golf in spring and then to Ambrosian Golf in fall. That way you actually can build an Aztekos in the first winter. But I don't think I would recommend not moving to Molos Golf. The only situation where I think you don't is if you move to Ambrosian Golf, and I think you only move to Ambrosian Golf if you do a gambit that I called the Aetolian Gambit or something, where you move Pharsalos to Aetolia. That way that unit can defend Astakos, while the fleet now in Ambracian Gulf can pick up a center on the western coast. So I will place both of these two moves into niche, because I do think they have some nice synergy. I don't know if I tried it out in a game or not. I don't remember, but I wanted to. Maybe it can see some sort of appearance in the tournament. Okay, let's move on to Shalkis. The unit I think has starting to see a lot of possible developments. The main three moves are to Agency, Cyclades, and Golfa Yubua. And I think all are really good, honestly. Shalkis to Agency is the most standard, I believe, because it leads to you picking up Lesbos, Mytilene, as a neutral supply center. It's the only way for you to get a neutral supply center with the unit, which is just, in general, very solid. So I'd say that this is a strong option. Very good stuff. To Cyclades, I think is really interesting, because you do just accept that this unit is not getting anything the first year. But what it does is that it helps greatly with the Southern Naval War, which is really interesting. Cyclades to save Crete in fall, especially, is what I'd like to combine this with, because it puts pressure on an otherwise pretty pocket area for the Peloponnesians, being Cadonia and Sparta. I think this, paired with a very offensive Delian playstyle in some other areas, could open up windows in a otherwise very defensive Peloponnesian opening. So I'd say it's a very good alternative. The last one being Shalkis to Gulf of Euboea, which mainly aims to put a lot of pressure on the southern front, or the main front, I suppose, and putting pressure on Delhi specifically, making sure that the Peloponnesians have trouble taking Naupactus, sorry. So that's the main idea behind that move. It also opens up, for example, convoying Pharsalos down to Delphi, or giving support to Doris, just to make sure that you can really group up a bunch of units really quickly in that area, which I think is honestly great. I'm not sure if I would say that it's strong or a good alternative, because it doesn't necessarily force game. It's a nice defensive option if the Peloponnesians move Potidaia to Fermatic Gulf, since it adds a tap on Pharsalos. So I'd say it's a strong move. It's a nice defensive and possibly offensive move. Okay, I think before moving on to Thessaly, that being Larissa and Pharsalos, I think we'll do Anatolia. So Ephesus is one of my favorite centers on Delian, honestly. It's a funny flank that you might be able to just pocket for a couple of years, unless Peloponnesians do a very aggressive naval invasion into the Aegean. And in general, we see this unit opening towards Abydos, since Chalkis can move towards Mytilene. But if you're moving Chalkis somewhere else, it opens up the options of going for Mytilene instead with that unit. Or, of course, though, you need to stay wary of it opening up the situation where you simply doesn't get a neutral with the unit due to Peloponnesians bouncing in Mytilene with you with Potidaia. And this is why I would say that in general moving to Phrygia is better, but because it's a true guaranteed neutral center, which is something the Delian League greatly needs. But moving to a Carian Sea is a good alternative in the openings where you do not move to Chalkis. If they do move to Thracian Sea, you need to make sure that you can actually defend that flank, and a unit in a Carian Sea is way better at doing so than a unit in Phrygia. So, let's move on to Thessaly then. I've written two possible options for both these, Abra and Aetolia that we talked about earlier, and then a support move that they both share. So, let's start with looking at Larissa, because it's mostly as a supporting act for Pharsalos, which is a really strong unit. In general, I think that moving to Piera isn't amazing. It's good combined with a move through to Trichala to put a lot of pressure on Pella. But most likely you're going to see a bounce from Pella in Trichala. So it's not actually that offensively good. I think it leaves a lot to be desired, pretty much. So I would leave it in Niche. Which is why I think in general Larissa to Trichala is going to be the main option. And most people would probably put it as best option, but I believe that this support move is a really strong contender and something that is in general very underplayed. Okay, let's move on to Pharsalos. In general, I think that Pharsalos has a lot of good options. Moving to Trichala means Piera is you're moving Larissa to Piera, which is just inherently just not amazing. So I would actually place Pharsalos to Trichala in Niche along with the move to Piera. Pharsalos to Doris is probably one of the main options, similar to how Larissa to Trichala is a main option. It put a lot of pressure on Delphi, and in combination with Chalkis to Gulf of Euboea, you can put two units on Delphi if they don't bounce you in Doris, and if they do bounce you in Doris, now you can just further your pressure on Trichala or get Doris for free next season. So in general, I think it's a very strong option. And now for my personal favorite move for the Thessaly units, which is what I call the Tricalan double, which is Larissa moving to Trichala with Pharsalos support. The reason why I think this is so good is that it guarantees progress into Epirus, or Epirus as a region, mainly progress towards Dodona as a center. And it ensures that most Macedonia, Peloponnesians, aren't getting any land space towards you, since Pella is most often just moving to Trichala. You basically just waste their move. If they move to Piera, it's pretty unfortunate because now you need to go back with Larissa. But if they move to Piera, they're most likely also moving to Fermatic Gulf. So in that case, you just have to support yourself back into Larissa, I think, which is fine, really. Other than that specific combination of hyper-aggressive moves, I think this opening covers in general really well and puts you in a position to take the West way more quickly than most other options do, which is why I place it in strong. So this is my personal tier list, I suppose. All units do have a best or a strong option, but there's still a lot of space for other fun alternative or niche moves. And in general, think that all of these are worth experimentation. I've left a couple openings out since they haven't been played, and probably for a good reason. But I've tried to include as many of the viable options as possible. Okay, that's all for now. I'll do a similar video for the Peloponnesian League.